There is a company in China which has just been approved to spend $1.5 billion to buy over parts of the Australian dairy industry. They're now going to take over, and the ACCC agreed to this today, to take over Lion Dairy and Drinks. This includes things like Dairy Farmers as a brand. How the hell is it that literally on the day where they're telling us coronavirus could take 50% of the population, require up to 1.8 million beds, that we are selling off things to China when our exposure to the Chinese economy is one of the reasons why we probably won't hit a surplus this year?
Paul, I'm absolutely furious about this, and of course I've been fighting for the dairying industry and for it to remain in Australian hands. Our agricultural land should not be foreign owned. Now, we've actually dropped in our production of milk from 12 billion litres down to 8 billion litres. We had 1,500 dairy farmers in Queensland, we're down to now 300. We're losing our dairying industry. To see this being sold to the Chinese, and of course they've got the largest dairy in the Southern Hemisphere, which is in Tasmania, and they export 2 plane loads of their milk to China twice a week. Now that milk's leaving Australia. If we don't have enough milk, and that's what's happening, is some of the states don't have enough milk to supply their own needs, and yet the government is not doing anything about it to prop it up and ensure that we give them a farm gate price for their milk, which I'm going to put my bill up again. I'm disgusted with this, but the Foreign Investment Review Board, which I have raised before, is basically just rubber stamping. So we hardly knock back anyone whatsoever who applies for foreign investment in Australia. And it's a big concern of mine and a big concern of a lot of Australians that bring it to my attention. I think it's disgraceful. It should never have been allowed. But because the government is concerned about the economics of the country, they are encouraging foreign investment into Australia and increasing immigration to prop up the economy. I think it's a wrong way to go about it.
Sounds like a Ponzi scheme. I mean, Stephen, look, I understand how open an economy we have to be. I understand about the need to deal with China, but it seems to me to be a little antithetical that literally on a day that has had all that stuff that I talked about before, the ACCC says they won't stand in the way. Foreign Investment Review Board, well, who knows which way it's going to go. So put simply, if you could have a say, what would your say be on this company going to China while coronavirus is ripping through the world?
Look, I mean, obviously the coronavirus issue is becoming a more and more of a hit across a hit in terms of the economic activity in every sense. I mean, you just got to look at the reports out of Italy right now, where they, it's serious when they cancel the soccer in Italy. So this is reaching genuinely concerning stages. The Australian government have been doing the right thing so far. They've not been kowtowing.
But what would you do about the milk?
Okay, so when it comes to the milk, firstly, I'm in favour of there being certain areas where we need to quarantine on the basis of national interest and on security issues, that we shouldn't allow particularly some countries to make purchases. Okay, on things like milk, and I would probably point to say what's happening with gas, where this government is putting a reservation, and the Labor Party has been championing this for some time, but the government is saying we're going to put a reservation, so there's got to be a guarantee that gas is available in Australia at a reasonable price.
So sell the milk company as long as there's enough milk for us.
I'd be concerned if they were buying what is a major producer of milk in Australia and it was all going to somehow end up offshore. I think Australians would feel that that was absolutely exploiting Australia's resources and Australians were getting nothing for it. But at the same time, the other argument is, well, Australia is a small country of population with small capital reserves. We have existed and continue to exist and need foreign investment in this country.
But we've got
to get the balance right.
Yeah, but James, the idea that a brand as iconic as Dairy Farmers, which is known to a lot of people in big parts of the country, is on its way to being a Chinese brand, apart from anything else, what Pauline's saying too, about how there are some shortages in some parts of the country.
There are shortages, there's cost problems, there's problems with the farmers getting a fair price, there's all of these things. You've got farmers who are being driven out of business by, our deciding to worship this sort of market that's going to drive them out of business. And then they wind up going to the wall, and then you have the companies just selling out to China. So a bunch of people at one end of this are getting very rich. Our farmers are getting screwed. And the consumer here is, in the long run, not doing well either, because the thing is, when we talk about selling to China, we're talking about selling to state-owned enterprises, or we're selling to companies that are very closely linked to the Chinese government. Right. This is as a national security issue. This is not just about farm and agriculture. It's not just like selling it to Japan or an American company or somebody like that. There's a whole range of security issues here, which, I think just because we want to get the dollar in and we want to get the keep the GDP ticking over positively every quarter so we can boast about that, we're selling off an awful lot. And what do we have left at the end?
But how does this work? Under this deal, Pauline, does the Chinese owner of the company say, well, in order to be able to send some stuff to China, we're going to ramp up production here? Are these the things they're telling our authorities? Are our authorities even asking these questions?
No, what we found was a lot of the deals that have been done with these companies, they actually say, we'll pump a lot of the money in. Actually, I'm trying to think of Moon. I can't think of the company down in Tasmania. They said they would actually put $100 million into it when they allowed it to go through the Foreign Investment Review Board. Actually, they're running short of money. They're wanting a loan from the government, so they never put the $100 million in. I'm sick of seeing these deals that these foreign companies say they're going to do, and they never do, and they are never chased up by the government. It is pathetic. And the whole fact is, we need food security in this country. Like I said, we've dropped a lot of our milk supply in Australia. We do not have to tell them they must supply the needs to Australia. They can still export their produce to their own country, and we will have to import our milk possibly from New Zealand, and I think that's what the plan is.
Yeah, this is the Chinese company Moon Lake trying to take over the Tasmanian VDL Farms Group. Just, I'm not pretending I knew. God love Google and being able to do so on the set.
No, thank you. I just had a bit of a brain dead at the moment because I know it's about 18,000 acres with about 19,000 head of cattle on it. It's a huge property, but
I don't think anyone doubts your knowledge or passion on this one, and more power to you in the next little while.